Right, I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is Richard Solly from the London Mining Network.
Hello.
And we've just been talking a lot about Colombia, BHP, Billiton. I want to move on to Iraq. Now, the Iraq war was over, to me, it seems like it was over one oil field, which was the Ramallah oil field. And what happened with that was the field that BP were under drilling, and that's when they moved forward into Kuwait. At the moment, after the war in Iraq, presently it's in the hands of BP and Sinopec, the Chinese national oil company. But Iraq is it is the number one example of the lengths that mining oil companies will go to make a profit.
Yes. Well, one of the things that's associated with the mining industry around the world is militarisation of areas. So you get a multinational mining company declaring an interest in an area. In the case of Colombia, you often, not always, but often get paramilitary organisations going in there, knocking off people who are opposed to the mining. When the mine company comes in, then the army will be there to protect its interests, and with the army there'll be an increase in human rights abuses. West Papua is a good example too. The Indonesian army is there to protect the Grasberg mine, which is run by Freeport-McMoran with the help of Rio Tinto, which is British. Rio Tinto helped to fund expansion of the mine and creams off a fair proportion of the profits. All manner of human rights abuses and extrajudicial killings are associated with that mine, partly because the West Papuan people have been struggling for independence ever since Indonesia invaded them. So the mining project there is associated also with the loss of a people's sovereignty, because it was the presence of that mineral deposit that was one of the prime motivators of the Indonesian invasion. But there's similar situations around the world. Peru at the moment is in turmoil because of conflict over mining projects, where all over the country people are saying we don't want a mine here, or we don't want oil drilling here, and the police, army are sent in to repress protest.
We look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, Northern Africa. You know, this is... It's a form of imperialism by corporations, isn't it?
Yes, corporations supported by the armed forces of nation states, but with the threat that if the nation state doesn't do a good enough job, then maybe the massed forces of the rest of the West will come in.
But there's almost like a silence within the media, you know, within government, within political debate. You know, you don't get a question on a programme like Question Time asking about, you know, who's financing the mining, who's profiting from it, who's dying.
It's too uncomfortable for people, I think, partly because, well, it's out of people's mind because it's out of people's sight. It's a way off over the horizon and they don't see it. In the case of mining companies, though it's different with oil, people don't interact with the companies directly, because you don't go down to a local iron station and buy 200 tonnes of iron. But it's also, I think, because when people do become aware that actually we are involved, even if we don't want to be, through bank accounts, pension funds, insurance policies, through government policy supporting British companies in their operations abroad, people feel a bit bad about that and a bit upset about it and don't quite know what to do. And if they start feeling guilty about it, one of the reactions to guilt is you try and forget about it.
Well, a lot of the money that has built this country, the roads, the schools, the hospitals, has been built on the debt, destruction and death of people around the world.
It has, and it's been going on for several hundred years, of carting other people's resources off out of their countries up to here to benefit us and not them.
Why is it that people don't care then? What do you think about that, if I say that people don't care?
I think that when people really get the idea in their head about what's actually happening, most people do care. It's just, as I say, it's off over the horizon. When they learn that they're somehow involved in it, they don't quite know what to do and feel a bit guilty about it. And also, so many people are having a rough time themselves with the recession, or
But it's
they're
also a
busy.
massive media manipulation of it,
Yes.
isn't it? Like you see it all the time. I mean, Afghanistan, and he's just had a massive meeting, David Cameron, in number 10 about mining. So he invited all the people to come down to talk about the possibilities of mining in Afghanistan.
It's certainly difficult to introduce to interest mainstream media in covering all these issues, although we have had some really helpful coverage over the past year or two in national newspapers, and of course in this most important of media outlets here in your taxi.
Yeah.
But it's true that most people don't get to hear about it.
But I mean, their primary purpose is to, what I said to you before, is about controlling the means of production. If the cost is there, this is the circle of money. So war is good for business. So if you take like the model of Iraq, they go to war, they're billions, because the war is funded by taxpayers' money. So that they get to use
Yes.
taxpayers' money. It goes to them. But it's when they control, if they make all the cars run on oil, then that's it, isn't it? They're controlling the means of production. If the government turned around and said, right, every car's got to be a hybrid, where it runs on its own volition or its own electricity, but they're not going to do that, are they? They need to control the means of production.
Well, presumably, if that system became profitable for them, then they'd pursue it with great enthusiasm, and it could be, because a hybrid car also needs all manner of minerals to make it.
Yeah.
So I think the way the whole system is structured, where companies need to make short-term profits or they drop to bits, this is a crazy way of structuring a global economy, because it encourages people to act for short-term gain rather than the long-term interests.
I mean,
of
you've got
people on the
Goldman
planet.
Sachs. They've got a warehouse outside of Chicago or Detroit full of aluminium.
Yeah, so they can control the price of aluminium by
You-
how much they allow out of the warehouse. at any
You
one time.
got Deutsche Bank, the second largest supplier of oil in the world. Deutsche Bank
Yeah.
buy more oil and sell
didn't
more
know that.
oil
I
than
didn't know
anyone
that.
else in the world. I mean, that's what they're doing. That's what the stock exchange, the city of corruption, the city of London, basically is we formed a society that allows rich people to gamble every day on whether the poor eat or starve.
Yes,
That's what they're doing.
That is exactly it. And I think we have to get more active and more vocal to oppose this. And we have to take a lead from, well, in the case of working on the mining industry, as I do, we need to take a lead from the communities around the world who are resisting what's going on and demanding justice. And it's our job to stand with them and amplify their voices, bring their voices to bear here in the centre of where the industry's financed from,
But these-
demand justice.
But these big companies, Glencore, Xstrata, Rio Tinto, Anglo American, BHP, it's bigger than they're bigger than the government. They are the shadow government.
They and the banks. Yes, you're right.
So they
but
are owned by the banks. BP, Shell, they're all owned by the banks.
I think the fact of their hugeness doesn't reduce our responsibility to do something about it, and ought not allow us to feel despondent about it, because we can do stuff, and the more that people are doing in all manner of different ways according to what they're particularly good at or particularly drawn to, it can and does and will have an impact to make things better, in my view.
Well, we've got everything. We've got art, intelligence, love, resources. I mean, we could be so special, but we choose the opposite.
We choose short-term gain and worship of money instead of
And greed.
being kind to one another. Yes.
Greed
yes.
is rewarded in our society.
Yes, it's not only rewarded, it's lauded. I mean, if you've got loads and loads of money, people think, oh, you must be a wonderful person because you've got loads and loads of money. There's such a contrast between that crazy view and the view of indigenous societies that I've spent time in, where somebody keeping hold of a load of money would be really looked down on, because what gains honour is sharing rather than accumulating. And I think having a culture where we honour accumulation is a recipe for disaster, really.
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, has been Richard Solly from London Mining Network.